Yeah, actually, rabid is how dark money groups view Senator Whitehouse every day of the year.
We'll strike that for the record. We'll strike that for the
He's-
record.
He's like the Jalbert
No,
of rabid.
point of honor for me. I don't resent that description at all. But I am taking Markey's time, so let me yield it back.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. And obviously, the UN this week made it very clear that the world is now on thin ice and that we have to do even more. So these regulations that the EPA is about to announce, they're our response. They're the answer that we have to have for light trucks, heavy trucks, for utilities, for mercury. You know, strong new regulations send the right signal to the rest of the world that we're serious about this, that we are going to be the leader, that we lost time during the Trump administration, but now the United States is back, not as the laggard, but as the leader. So it's just so important that those regulations be the strong regulations that the planet needs, given especially what was just announced this week by the United Nations. And as well, and we thank you, Mr. Regan, for your leadership. You understand better than any administrator ever how local, hyper-local, so many of the effects of pollution are, and that hyper-local air quality monitors can identify air pollution hotspots, empower residents with information about the problems and the solutions of the injustice of poor air quality, because we can't manage what we don't measure. I've been introducing, legislation for years on environmental justice, air quality monitoring, and a lot of funding was included in the Inflation Reduction Act in order to accomplish that goal. And the administration has already awarded over $53 million for 132 community air monitoring projects across the country, including New Bedford, Massachusetts. And as we know, it's tribal, low-income communities of color that have been living as sacrifice zones. And it's just so important for us to ensure that healthy air is no longer determined by zip code. So, Mr. Administrator, will the EPA have a strategy to ensure that additional investments outlined in your proposed budget to ensure air monitoring data can be used to address those sources of pollution and empower communities to take action?
Absolutely. The 2024 budget maintains that $100 million commitment for air monitoring. We're going to build on that with what we've received in the American Rescue Plan starting out, and then those resources in the Inflation Reduction Act. To your point, it is critical that these local communities have the technological ability to measure the air quality impacts that they're seeing on the front lines, feed that trusted data in concert with our state agencies' regulations to ensure that the permit reflects the adequate protection for the community.
Beautiful. And in terms of the budget that you have, you are the watchdog on the beat. Is the budget you're submitting allowing you now at the EPA to build your workforce both through recruitment and retention so they can properly perform their incredibly important job of protecting the air we breathe and the water that we drink?
It is definitely putting us on the trajectory to do that. The percentage increase that we received last year was the first step. This year, I know 19% sounds like a lot, but when you look at the dollar amount and the needs of the agency, it's not. But it is positioning the agency to help this country stay globally competitive and keep up with the 21st century.
Thank you. And on PCBs, asbestos, lead, they continue to poison our schools, households, workplaces across the country. We absolutely have to provide the resources to make sure that we're focusing upon those issues. How necessary is this increased budget if we want EPA to actually be able to address toxic substances in communities and in our schools, as well as to get them out of our economy to begin with where they are completely unnecessary?
It's extremely important. I know that TSCA was a bipartisan victory that you and others hold high. I know that it was one of the more personal motivators for you. And when I think about an illness or illnesses that are caused by toxics like TCE, and the fact that we're just decades later finally getting to the point where we can propose the right kinds of protections, it demonstrates how much of an uphill battle controlling these hazardous toxics are. We need the workforce, we need the resources, and we're ready to do it.
Yeah, I only had 2 unions endorse me in my first race for Congress, and one of them was the asbestos workers. And Joe Zampatello Sr. died from asbestosis. Ultimately, that's why I was always interested in that issue. So to the extent to which, in the 2016 bill, Mr. Chairman, that passed on TSCA, it's just so important that we get the resources to the administrator so that that job can continue to be worked upon. And I might add as well something that's very near and dear to the heart of the chairman and myself. It's the climate bank that we know that you're working on to make sure that it's constructed in a way that will maximize the incredible potential which it has. And I want to thank you for working with us in terms of the construction of it so that it can ensure that every community in America has access to the tens of billions of dollars which can be unleashed with a climate bank that's properly constructed. So I thank you for working with us.
Absolutely, and we'll continue to work with you and your staff every step of the way.
Thank you, Mr. Administrator. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Markey, thank you. And thank you for